6 News at 5.
Hi, we're just asking people about what issues they're thinking about as far as the election, not people, just the issues.
I'm Reba with Channel 6. What's important to you this election season?
We're coming out to talk to people about what issues are important to them this election.
Not about who you're voting for, but just some of the key issues that are most important to you.
What are the most important things that are going through their minds at this election? What's important to you?
So what issues concern you most headed into this election?
We are sharing your voices on this election day. Thanks for joining us here for the CBS 6 News at 5. I'm Cheryl Miller.
And I'm Julie Bragg. We have complete team coverage for you throughout the evening. Our Cameron Thompson and Elizabeth Holmes have updates on the state of the voting process right now, including some issues at one polling place in Richmond.
Our Tyler Lane is following the mayoral contest in the city of Richmond. And we begin with our Bill Fitzgerald, who's anchoring our coverage live. Bill?
Cheryl, I'm here at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. That is a polling place in Richmond. We are in the 2nd District. Now, in just a few minutes, I'll be joined by our political analyst, Dr. Bob. He'll break down what he's been seeing up to this point and what he's going to look at tonight when the returns start coming in. But just a few hours into Election Day today, a Richmond precinct chief was let go right here in Richmond. Apparently, a number of people in Gilpin Court were given the wrong ballot. That is a federal ballot and not the ballot with the local candidates on it. So our Elizabeth Holmes is there in Gilpin Court, and she spoke to both the Richmond registrar and that precinct chief who was let go. Elizabeth?
Bill, that's right. We were told by the Richmond Registrar's Office that the first 11 voters here this morning were given a federal ballot, meaning that they could not cast their vote for Richmond mayor, school board, or city council. Now, these federal ballots are really only used for military personnel who may be serving overseas, but it's common for precincts to have some of these ballots, even in places where they might not be used. Now, those 11 voters had already cast their ballot, and by law, it's too late to change anything once that ballot is cast. Now, my colleague Brendan King was here when this was unfolding this morning, and when he tried to talk to the precinct chief about voter complaints, he was told by that precinct chief at the time, quote, everyone voted just fine. Now, around 11:15 this morning, the precinct chief was let go by the Richmond Electoral Board, and a new one was sworn in. The former chief, who says she's worked 17 elections, told me later that she is sorry for those 11 voters who were impacted, but she says she is not the one responsible for the mix-up, that an untrained poll worker passed out the federal ballots on accident, and she said the registrar's office should not have even had them at the precinct location. She also said that there were some other issues like the doors automatically locking, and that made it hard for voters to even get in, as well as some issues with poll books. And she said she was let go because of a, quote, personality issue.
What happened here today is unfortunate, but like that election officer was absolutely trained to do her job, which unfortunately she did not.
I'm crushed, absolutely crushed, that you would take a personality, what some may call a character defect, or something about my character to let me go. Not that I did anything wrong in my precinct. Your officer did something wrong that you sent over untrained while I'm dealing with other issues with the registrar, because you didn't put that, I'm talking about the registrar, didn't put the information in the e-poll books on time.
Now, when we interviewed Keith Ballmer earlier this afternoon, he said that he didn't know of any other issues happening in the city, and he maintained that poll workers are adequately trained. Now, my colleague Cameron Thompson just heard from the State Board of Elections on what voting looks like across the Commonwealth. He's here with an update. Cameron.
Yeah, hi, Liz. And that issue that you have been covering between that one Richmond precinct and the captain really was the big issue that was discussed at this afternoon meeting with the State Board of Elections. Commissioner Susan Beal says they weren't really privy to all of the back and forth that you have just been reporting on, but they just said that the Richmond registrar informed them that this was happening and that they had replaced the precinct captain there. The one other thing that Beals mentioned that they were noticing around the state was precincts near colleges and universities, saying that they were seeing large influxes of college voters that were turning out doing same-day registration and casting provisional ballots. I have message with Richmond's registrar Keith Ballmer asking if he's been seeing the same thing around Virginia Commonwealth University, and he says they have.
We have been in touch with those localities, and in every case they are deploying more officers of election and supplies to those universities, to those precincts on their campuses. And what we would just encourage everyone to do, as I said at the top, is please make sure you stay in line. Even if the 7 o'clock hour passes, they will process you, and they do want you to vote.
And the rest of the briefing was mostly about what to expect once the polls close at 7 p.m. and they start counting. Beal says the focus for precincts and registrars tonight is counting 3 types of ballots. That's the ballots cast today, the early votes, and the mail-in ballots. And you'll be able to see those come in on the state's website. She says they'll have a breakdown by locality and a breakdown of what type of vote was cast, whether it was early today or mail-in, a feature they didn't have in 2020. And they also have sort of a tracker seeing how much of the vote has been reported and how much might be remaining by locality. And then in the coming days, they will start counting those provisional ballots that all of these college students apparently are casting, along with the mail-in votes that are postmarked by today and arrive by Friday at noon. In Richmond, Cameron Thompson, CBS 6 News.
Thank you, Cam. And of course, the big item on the ballot for Richmonders here locally, who will be the city's next mayor. Since 2016, LeVar Stoney has been mayor, serving 2 terms as the city's leader. Our Tyler Lane spoke to Richmonders about what they want to see. Tyler?
Well, Julie, the voters that we spoke to today say that these local issues impacting Richmond are just as important as the national ones that have dominated much of the attention throughout this election. And when it comes to what those voters want to see improve in the city, we did hear a lot of overlap. So these are the 5 candidates running to be Richmond's next mayor: Andreas Addison, Danny Avula, Michelle Mosby, Maurice Neblett, and Harrison Rodet. Avula and Rodet lead in fundraising at this point, both reporting over $1 million in total campaign contributions. While the candidates all differ, of course, on some issues and prioritizations, they also agree on a lot. Reforming City Hall, which we've reported on a lot, addressing the cost of living, and supporting public schools have been key messages to all their campaigns. Now, for the voters that we saw at the polls, they say affordable housing and rising rent are top concerns, as well as education, investment in the city's south side, and law enforcement resources.
What they're doing for housing and rent, if they're going to stand by and support LGBTQ community, other things, or their opinions on women's rights.
So I really believe in housing first. I want the mayor to work on helping provide housing first, or growing options for our neighbors who need to get what they need.
A lot of people don't like to talk about in general, just because of like the political turmoil that's been happening recently, is the police force. There's a lot of good people, and you know, not everybody's good, but Richmond City Police Department definitely needs a little bit more in terms of being able to police a lot of the high crime neighborhoods and all that.
Now, for the Richmond's mayor's race, this is how it works. The winner needs to get at least 5 of the city's 9 districts. Now, if that doesn't happen, the race could lead to a runoff between the top 2 candidates who received the most votes. In the city of Richmond, I'm Tyler Lane, CBS 6 News.
All right. Thank you, Tyler, for that report. And as Tyler mentioned, Richmonders are making their voices heard in the mayoral race and in the general election. We're joined now by our political analyst, Dr. Bob Holsworth. Bob, thanks for coming here to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture.
Always great to be here. Yeah.
All right. So what are you watching in the mayoral race? What's sticking out to you in terms of what's happening?
Well, I think the mayoral race, because it's this modified electoral college race, we got to see whether or not we're going to have more than 2 people win districts. Because if only 2 people wins districts and you have to win 5 of the 9 to be elected mayor, we'll have a mayor tonight. However, if we find 3 or 4 candidates actually splitting the districts, we have the possibility of a runoff. So first and foremost, that's what I'm looking at.
And so if it goes to that runoff, that'll be in a few weeks, the beginning of December. We've never had one before.
No, since we've started having an elected mayor, we've never had one. We almost had one in 2008 when LeVar Stoney was able to win 5 districts, but we've never had a particular runoff where you would then have the 2 highest vote getters in a runoff, and then one of them would have to win 5 districts.
Okay, let's shift gears now to the state as far as the presidential election. Have any trends changed? Last time we talked about it, you said the Democratic ticket, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz leading by about 8 points or so?
I don't know how many they're going to win by, Bill, but they're going to win here. They're going to coast here probably relatively easily, I think. Donald Trump is maybe popular in some parts of the country. He's not popular in the most populous part of Virginia, Northern Virginia, and he's not that popular in the RVA area as well. So I'm going to be looking at really early on how well he's doing in Chesterfield County. Can he do as well as Glenn Youngkin did in 2021? I doubt it, but I'm going to look at that.
And how does that impact Tim Kaine's race, the incumbent Democratic senator against Republican challenger Hung Cao?
Tim Kaine's going to win that race easily. Hung Cao has run one of, I think, the worst campaigns I've ever seen in Virginia. He's insulted part of the state at times, said he didn't want to go down to Southwest Virginia because that would be ridiculous. Called Stanton a podunk place.
Oh, that's right.
And he called places that where Republicans do well. He basically insulted. He hasn't been very visible. He rejected the opportunity to have debates. This is not going to be a close race.
All right, Dr. Bob, thank you for your insights as always. And we're going to have more from Dr. Bob ahead on the CBS 6 News at 6. Plus, ahead at 5:30, our senior reporter Wayne Colville will join us with how voters in Petersburg are thinking and saying and feeling about bringing a casino to that city. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Bill. And today we're sharing the voices of you about the issues you care about on a federal, state, and local level.
As Richmond voters elect a new mayor, we wanted to know what the issues people living in the city care about. In the days leading up to the election, our team of anchors went out to give voters a voice.
Well, you got to make a choice. You know, sometimes it's hard, but if people don't participate, you don't get the kind of government you need.
I think I'd like to see the city run a little bit more effectively. They seem to have problems with taxes in terms of getting the right amount. At least I've had that issue. I'd like to see somebody that's a little more effective in that regard.
Well, like citywide, mostly I would just say education, police, crime, making sure that everybody's, getting the funds they need, roads, Richmond can always use better roads.
That's the word I want to use. Everything is antiquated. We have the brand new school next to us where we live, and we could use a few more of those.
Just bringing more business in and making sure that we have the infrastructure and everything that we need to accommodate it. I'd like to see something happen with the Coliseum, revitalizing that whole area. I think we need some bridge work. Those would be a couple of my big things. But just focus on the economy. Keep bringing jobs in.
Efficiency of city government. That's number one. Affordable housing is another one.
I think getting a handle on the finances is very important. It seems that spending and actually getting things done are questionable. So a balanced budget, priorities of streets, crime, safety, I guess.
And the economy has been a top of mind issue for many people over the past few years, especially including here in Central Virginia. Coming up, we'll share the voices of some Central Virginia voters hearing what they want to see change. Zach?
Well, we are in record territory today. It will be very close to a record high again tomorrow. I'm tracking cooler air, though, as well as a chance for some much-needed rain. I'll have that forecast when the News at 5 continues.